Well, welcome one, welcome all, and good evening to your favorite show, Sankofa. Looking backwards at the future, your host, Maponga J, all the way in South Africa here on Galaxy Universal Network, discussing social issues, unpacking the greater space of what is happening within our community. And we know in the olden villages where we are coming from, it takes a village to bring up a child. We are receiving a spat of events across the African continent in terms of violence against women in all regards, and it has come to our attention that we needed to have a conversation around this issue. And I would not find a better guest to sit with me tonight, none other than Bafana Pastor Muruti Phalane, Bafana Phalane, who is with the Seventh-day Adventist Church, but is specifically earmarked and is working within the Prison Ministries Department and also runs a non-government organization called the Hands of Our Women. Please send your greetings to the viewers out there.
Thank you, Bishop, for having me. Greetings to everyone out there. I hope you are keeping safe in this weather. Thank you so much.
All right, let's crack right going. What's going in South Africa here? What's going in South Africa for the past couple of months and years? You've been knocking your head on this women violence and etc. Just give us a quick brief in terms of your understanding of the South African space when it comes to violence against women.
South Africa is not a safe space for women, let alone children. It's not even a safe space for men. It's not a safe space for everyone. It's becoming worse and worse as time goes. I had hoped that as time goes, looking at where we come from as a country, from very unfortunate past, apartheid and stuff like that, I really thought as lives are getting better, opportunities are building, brutality will also fade away. But it looks like it keeps on going up and up. Things are getting worse and worse.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll be tight. I'll be tight with you.
Yeah.
Because I really want to squeeze some information out of you. So I would want to take you through to take us through rather. And what quality of people do you find in prison? Maybe let's start from your workplace. Who ends up in prison there when you're doing your prison ministries? What type of people are there?
The funny thing is that the people in prison actually, very few people actually think they deserve to be there. Yeah, that's what I've noticed. Before I went there, I was really naive. I thought going in there, you'll find people who can actually count what they've done and looking at how many years left, But all of them, they say the system has failed them. All of them, they say they don't deserve to be there because they know of worse people out there who are still at large. We are walking in the streets, and they complain and they say they were an easy target for the cops and stuff like that. Some of them were framed, but most of them are guilty. But what I've noticed is that prison is not a rehabilitation center.
What is it?
There are people. You can't call it a rehabilitation center when you have a man who killed a number of people and a man who did shoplifting living in the same place.
What happens at the end of living together?
You live together, something will tell you that you are equals. Something will tell you that you are also a reject as much as a man who killed 16 people. When you come out of there, you have a criminal record. You can't be what you used to be. The society does not trust you, and you survived prison. There's no need for you to be a good person again. Most people go in there after committing one crime, they come back, they are worse. They become worse. Yeah, worse people.
Women killing their children. What could be the cause?
For me, I think socio-economic status of our people is bad. Poverty, where our people live, is a breeding ground for brutality, and where our people, it's easy for this kind of crimes to prevail in those situations. Our people live in terrible conditions. Squatter camps, it's easier for someone in the squatter camp to give birth and take the child and put the child in the bin. They can't even provide for themselves. How will they provide for the child? Yeah. Before we get to the brutality and the crime, which is just a symptom of a decaying society. The society is rotten, Before we get there, before we put monies into the police department to actually take all the prisoners to jail, we need to actually look at the ideas people have. You can't put the law when you did not give people a good life. Life is bad. Life is is a breeding ground for brutality.
Women to women violence. What is the cause?
You know, when the society does not have a regard for the law, I think it would be unfair for the government to expect a good behavior from those people. When the society does not have good regard for the law, when the society is poor, people don't have regard for the law. People are not afraid of cops anymore. They live with them. They do crime with them. Violence is there.
Is that?
Yeah.
But what would be the main causes? Why are women violent towards other women?
For me, you know, truly speaking, Bishop, it's to some we can say, looking at, maybe if you look at the situation, you know, maybe some people are in jail because, you know, there was a wife who was married to a man. She finds out that the husband is cheating with a young girl. Instead of facing the situation, they go
Take
for
the law to their own hands.
they go for an easy target, which is not the man but a young girl.
The younger girl.
Yeah. Sometimes they don't do it themselves. They hire people
Get rid of the other one.
to get rid of the other one. So it becomes easier in this kind of a society.
There's a lot of violence in the community.
The moral fiber of the community, of our communities, is weak. It's weak. For an example, you have a family here. Here's a man. Here's a wife. Here are children. I'm talking of a specific family in an African context. They are very poor. Then as they grow, maybe one of their daughters finds a boyfriend out there, a married man who can provide, you know, just a bit. Yes. She comes home with some food and some things. Goodies to a poor family where none of them can provide. A father can't stand up and say, umthetho uti, because he also needs the food. Yeah, he also needs the food. So we must deal with the socio-economic status of our people, because there's no way you can groom your children on a certain principle when you can't even provide for them.
Women beating their husbands. Man abuse.
Yeah.
From women.
I've heard.
What are the variety of cases that we've come across? Because I think it's a reality.
Yeah,
we need to face up. There are some women out there who actually abuse their partners.
Yeah, it's a very unique case where it is not reported, like other cases. You know, a patriarchal society or whatever, it does not actually allow men to come forth and say, "Hey, I'm crying, I'm being bang shapile by your wife." Even the cops would laugh
before they take the case number.
I mean,
They love first.
They love first. I mean, you can't.
It's embarrassing.
It's embarrassing. It's not acceptable, and it's something that we must be free to talk about. Especially if you want a society that has no violence, you must tackle violence at all corners. It's there, and we should not ridicule people when they come forth saying, "My wife beat me, my wife did this." Sometimes they don't do it physically. Sometimes they do it in ways you can't even imagine. They hire people to come and rob you and stuff like that. It's still violence. Yeah.
Emotional violence, sexual violence, economic violence.
Economic violence.
But it's a reality.
It is a reality.
Some men out there,
they're struggling.
Things
are not coming together at work. Only to find out that, you know, your wife is sponsoring your downfall. It's there.
Pulling you down.
Try business, it doesn't work. She pays people just so that your things don't go well. It's still violence, still direct. You just don't know what's happening. Some of this violence is happening in our society. It's not like someone just wakes up and say, "I'm going to kill this child." There are people sponsoring it. You know, the Tseho, we went to their house the other day, Tseho Pule. Stories come out that there's a man who was hired to kill her because apparently the boyfriend who impregnated her was not ready to raise a child. So, yeah, there are stories coming out, you know, as the story develops, you know, and you see that
he actually hired
someone else,
a hitman, to come and to get, because he cannot afford.
He cannot afford
to raise up the child.
To raise up the child.
So the birth of the child was going to backfire on him.
There's an easy target, a man who needs money out there. You give him money and say, "Do this."
But the same amount of money you're using to hit for a hitman is not the same amount of money for child delivery.
So something is wrong with our society.
Fourth question.
Yeah.
Men versus women violence.
Men versus women violence. I think the history of South Africa, especially after colonialism, you know, I think patriarchy gave itself power. Colonialism sponsored patriarchy in ways that it was not there before. You know, there's a misconception that Africa is patriarchal and stuff like that. But there was peace in Africa before white people came. You know, if you want to see real patriarchy, look at the Western politics, where men fill up parliaments, but yet they say Africa is backwards. Africa does not give women a chance. Yeah, all presidents are white males.
Yes. All parliaments,
all parliaments.
Congresses.
Yeah, it's like a uniform thing from China up, west, east, everywhere. Yeah, that's when you'll see CEOs are men everywhere in the world. You know, only a few there and there, and then they come to Africa. They introduce their laws, and then they empower men with their stupid laws, because women used to rule. Women used to rule in Africa. They were queens in Africa. They empower men, and then they bring democracy, industrialization. Some positions are given to men in the society. They bring a very big imbalance. So they break the society, because women are not anything anymore. They depend on men for everything. Yeah. So in a society like that, even a man who is not working has more privilege than a woman. You know, for a woman to break the system, for women, they must work hard. They must be extra special. You know, they can't break the economic cycles of our communities. So that situation alone renders women as easy targets for men.
Has the political environment created a conducive space where women can live on African politics?
I doubt.
What's your view on that?
I doubt. Even in our political parties, you know, women, you can see from the top, the leadership of different political parties. There's only one woman as a deputy something, as a deputy treasurer. They don't really
count the critical mass.
Yeah, they don't really.
The top six, for example, you trophy a little bit of women.
I was talking to someone the other day saying, but you know, if you're a man and you believe in women in leadership, decline and say, give a woman a chance. Decline. You can't say women must lead when you're holding on to your seat. It must be a practical thing. Men must recuse. Men must say no and say women must lead, because you are building a society. Young girls want to see their mothers, they want to see their aunts there. So that
role models.
So that they can believe that they can be something. But if you are in a community where only men are leading, girls just want to be with sugar daddies. Girls they want to make out of their poverty with boyfriends and husbands. That's the society we live in. So sometimes we say girls are wrong and stuff like that, but it is the society we build. The society says only men are CEOs, only men are politicians, only men are presidents. So
before we break for the short break,
yeah,
what type of man would you find having killed a woman and a child? What type of a typical profiling of an abuser would come into your mind? What are the symptoms? Someone is watching out there.
Yeah.
Maybe they want to just say quickly, when 1, 2, 3, 4 begin to happen, it could be heading in this direction.
Our cultural norms, Bishop, are very bad. For an example, even when we grow up as young boys, you know, there's no boy who wants to lose an argument against a woman, a lady. That's where it starts, you know, because a woman can be more brilliant than I am. A woman can be quicker than I am. A woman can be stronger than I am. I think from that age, you know, boys must be taught that there are brilliant women out there who are more brilliant than you. A typical man who abuses a woman is a man who cannot see a woman succeeding in life. A man who cannot see a woman loving someone else as their choice. A woman must not have a choice. This is according to a man who cannot see a woman succeeding somewhere else. women must not have a choice, a woman must not prosper, a woman must not work and make more money than me. So a man who cannot see a woman succeeding, that's a man who will abuse.
That's
a
the
woman.
red flag for you.
A red flag. When they are not happy, that's a man who will abuse.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are in the studio with Ntate Bafana Phalane here, profiling for us and giving us some information in regard to GBV, gender-based violence in the greater South African community. He's working with the prison ministries under the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and we'll be back right after the break. Hang in there with us. We'll be taking him through, and when you come back on top of the program, I want to find out what is the involvement of the religious organizations in perpetrating this greater patriarchy monster and gender-based violence, and how are the churches also coping, if not getting themselves involved in this gender-based violence. Don't go away. We'll be right back after the break.
The coronavirus outbreak.
Experience the extraordinary.
Tremendous waste and tremendous fraud. Mexico is, in fact, you will soon find out.
It is a day to celebrate.
We don't approve at all what's going on.
Well, I don't know if it's necessarily unusual.
Challenge your ordinary.
Not only the government, the municipality here has had no plan.
Experience the extraordinary with StarSat.
From rural to urban, we bring you local and international sport.
From Cape to Cairo, from Nairobi to Kinshasa. As we stand out amongst the rest. And we are here to inspire you.
From the Horn of Africa to the Equator's indigenous people.
Galaxy Universal Network. Abapenyi bezindaba nezintatheli ezingesabilutho. Bila woga, upendeleo, hatuogopi chochote.
Channel 500 on StarSat. This is Galaxy Universal Network.
Welcome back to your show. It's Sankofa here, sitting with me, our guest, Bafana Phalane, a pastor from the Seventh-day Adventist Church, who is actually working in the prison ministries department, and we are picking up his brain on the gender-based violence. Then I get a call the other day, very interesting call, and plus a WhatsApp message, and then I saw a Facebook status from Dr. Pel Kupe, who is actually one of the leading pastors in South Africa here, and she's a woman. And then she says, apparently one of the churches around Johannesburg, or she didn't want to tell the place except, but somewhere around the place that she knows, and she has evidence. A pastor goes to preach there, and after he preached, apparently he was given a lady as an offering for the evening after the service, that kind of thing. And let's talk about these churches, church-based violence in all its forms. Which man can be paid with a woman as part of a thank you gift after preaching? Then the local pastor organized a lady as an honorarium for entertainment. And when I'm saying this, it paints a big picture in the shadow. How is the church coping with abuse, if it is happening? And do you have any cases of such abuses happening? And if so, how is the theology of the church and the behavior of the church, a patriarchal church, by the way, which is all masculine, dealing and handling and with the issue of women?
With me, Bishop, I think it's very difficult for a particular Christian church, a Protestant church or an apostolic church,
even Catholic,
to deal with the issue of violence against women. Why do I say that? I think we have dogmatized patriarchy in the scriptures. If you are opening your Bible and only the only theme in the Bible is achievements of men. Everything about the Bible, all the writers of the scriptures, how a theology was formed, church fathers said yes. Everything about the scriptures is men. And then you come down to a church in South Africa, pastors are men. Whether you are a Protestant, apostolic, or anything, pastors are men. So a church is an organization run by men. That's why women issues, there are so many in the churches, but they don't come out.
Why?
Because they report to the very abusers. I mean, for an example, if an elder is abusing a young girl in the church, an elder in a patriarchal church is close to the pastor, a man who must bring discipline. He's close to the pastor. He's an elder in the church. He's more closer to the pastor than everyone else. So if a young girl comes and say, hey, I want to report my friend to you, see, so the whole thing, we need to rethink the whole theology, actually, a whole Western theology, because that's not how it works in Africa. Women have power in Africa. Mothers used to run communities, families. So I think even the theologies, we must also think as Africans and say, what is it that we need from these scriptures? Is this the truth or is this a tradition?
According to you as a pastor, in whose image are women created?
Women. Or men, or
women.
Women are created in the image of God.
So is God a woman or God is a man?
Neither.
But men can say it's a he. Women can't say it's a she.
Men wrote the Bible.
Men wrote the Bible.
Men wrote the Bible. Men have been in the forefront. If men are writing about a leader, they're going to have to write about a leader who leads them.
Would you have a problem with a female God?
For some time, I really had a problem with that. But as time goes, as you learn, I realized that actually, even in Hebrew, God takes different forms. Somewhere when God takes care of his people, when they write the hand of God, they write the hand of God as a feminine. When God takes care of, when he goes to war, God takes the masculine form. So to say God is a man, not a woman, you're also being unfair to the traits of God.
I'm pushing a certain issue here. Because the famous Protestant and religious, particularly Christian perspective on the creation of women is that God created the heavens and the earth. When he had finished everything else, then man was lonely, walking in the garden. He didn't have anything to do.
The woman is
and then God says, oh no, shame, this guy is lonely. Let me make him a helpmate. So firstly, you have the coming in of women into the space as an afterthought of creation.
Of course,
and West, when they come in having been taken away from the rib of a man and to be made. And then West, chapter 3, then strikes. Then the woman talks to a snake. Then the woman and the devil becomes one thing plus the afterthought.
Violence.
And then you run through the whole Bible. Every time women are appearing, it's prostitution.
Dogs.
It's more Rahab. It's more Jezebel. It's more women at the well. The women at the issue of blood. And so you look. I'm still waiting for one sermon where you could actually celebrate the Deborah concept and create a theology out of that. What, in your own understanding, how is that theology affecting the interpretation of the church when it comes to relating with women?
It does. I mean, from the very first chapter of the Bible, a woman is added as an accessory. Everything is perfect. Everything God said it's good. And
by the way, after God created women, it never said it was good.
It was good.
It never said it. The Bible does not say it was good.
I think that's where actually people need to sit down. I mean, there was a meeting in Rome. They decided how they wanted to shape their theology. The theology that was influenced by their ideas and by their future endeavors, what they want to do in the world.
And take note, this is in the 300s.
Yes.
And to imagine the church in the 21st century still running on the software of the Council of Nicene, which was 321, 325 AD.
Yeah.
And you are still telling me that the software you are using to run a 21st century church are the dogmatics and the theology of the 321.
Yeah.
What do you notice about the church in terms of that dynamic? Are we progressive? Are we stuck in our traditions and history? Do we tolerate new ideas, or we want to maintain a patriarchal, authentic, orthodox, mainstream kind of theology?
Yeah. I think just like it's very unfair because just like church fathers sat down to come and map out the future of the kind of organizations they want to have in the world, I think even now Africans should sit down and actually look at whether this system works for them, for women and for children. For an example, God creates everything, creates a man from the dust with his own hands. There is that sense where God touches a man. And he creates a man from nothing, meaning it's a perfect idea from God's software creating a man. When it gets to a woman, finally God has run out of ideas. He has to go and copy and get a part from a man to create someone else. Yeah, who's that? From there we are saying, so a woman is not really a creation of God. He's a copy of a man, meaning she must help a man. She must come through for a man. Everything that a man does, a woman must support. You see, there we have a problem with that theology. Why do I say that? Maybe the problem is interpretation. You can say that because if you interpret and say God took out a rib from Adam's breast to create a woman, maybe the connotation is that these people are one. I mean, if he used a bone to create you, that means nothing can change. This is a real deal. He did not use a flesh. He used a bone. If he used a bone, that means this is a real deal. But it creates a problem in our society because a woman is now a supporter. It's not an authentic thing. It's not
have a life of her own.
No.
She must submit.
Submit all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. For an example, and then a woman does something wrong in the garden and God says, you shall bear children. So even the punishment goes to a woman. That's a narration we have in the Bible. The very scripture we hold so dear, very scripture we uphold.
How would you change that narrative, my honorable pastor? You're progressive. I can hear you're punching you're throwing in some punches here and there. If you had your own way of having this conversation to alter, to change, to develop, to magnify, realign or restructure that kind of a theology with the side effects that it has had in terms of the value of women, what kind of recommendations would you be giving?
For an example, even in the Protestant church, there are some texts we don't use. There's some texts we don't read. I think we must have an equal conversation with women and hear their side of the story and hear how the scripture has had an impact in their lives. What is it that is problematic? Because one, when I preach, I don't think of women. If I'm a preacher, I think of God, and background says God is a man. So even standing on the pulpit preaching, you are breathing patriarchy. I think we must all be honest and see and scrutinize our messages and actually find loopholes and see and look at where the problem is. Because sometimes you don't really say it and you don't really breathe patriarchy directly. You don't really say men must do this, men must do this. But you're preaching about a man. You are saying men must lead, men must do this. You are a pastor also. By just standing up in front of a church, you're simply saying this is a man's world.
That's God's order.
Yeah, this is a man's world. A man must do this, a man must do this. I think a man must also sit down and listen to the struggles of women, because sometimes we think we know and we don't really know what they're going through behind closed doors. Yeah.
Wow. That's our guest there, Mruti Phalane Bafana, giving us some breakdowns there on the societal issues and the positioning of women in the greater church and etc. Any interesting experiences you might want to share with us in the greater church space in line with abuse and GBV? What are the disciplinary measures in your church as far as dealing with these issues are concerned? Do you have a system in place, reporting, some statistics or some basic information as to how you guys are coping physically with the issue of women abuse?
Yeah, there are stats, It's very unfortunate that one would never expect abuse in the church. I mean, that's where we teach morality. That's where we teach people how to behave. But again, how we cope is actually guided by the gender of the people in power. Why do I say that? I mean, it's clear that the way the society has deteriorated, one of the people in power has actually abused a woman before. And for a man like me who has abused before, for me to stand up and come up with a decisive solution for a lady who just got abused, I won't go to the end of the story. I will always try and find middle ground, just to maneuver, because I'll be a hypocrite if I say this man must be punished when I myself have not been punished. So the only way to deal with it, no policy can change this. Inclusion. Women must also be in leadership. Women must report their cases to other women. So that you have level ground up there.
For communication,
Yes, because sometimes my friend has also abused. And then I'm punishing another one, I'm leaving my friend.
Well, we have Pastor Phalane Bafana here taking us through the church. When we come back on top of the program, I would want us to pick up another bone of contention in the line with women ordination. And particularly for him, I think I'll put more fire on him, because it looks like the Seventh-day Adventist Church was started by a woman, but the church is still struggling in terms of ordination of women and giving them access to power. So when we come back, we'll actually push him a little bit further, and let's see how he'll respond to the issue of women's recognition and function within the greater Seventh-day Adventist Church. And as we are talking here in South Africa, the problems of Africa are exactly the same. Don't go away. We'll be right back after the break.
The coronavirus outbreak.
Experience the extraordinary.
Tremendous waste and tremendous fraud. Mexico is, in fact, you will soon find out.
It is a day to celebrate.
We don't approve at all what's going on.
Well, I don't know if it's necessarily unusual.
Challenge your ordinary.
Not only the government, the municipality has had no plan.
Experience the extraordinary with StarSat.
From rural to urban, we bring you local and international sport.
From Cape to Cairo, from Nairobi to Kinshasa. As we stand out amongst the rest. And we are here to inspire you.
From the Horn of Africa to the Equator's indigenous people.
Galaxy Universal Network. Ngilikisisa ditaba tse felletseng. Abapenyi bezindaba nezintatheli ezingesabilutho. Bila woga, upendeleo, hatuogopi chochote.
Channel 500 on StarSat. This is Galaxy Universal Network.
The power to defeat coronavirus is in our hands. Play your part by following these 5 basic precautions. Regularly wash your hands with soap and water or sanitizer for at least 20 seconds. Maintain a safe distance of at least 1.5 meters from people around you. Wear a cloth mask at all times when in public. Always cough or sneeze into your elbow or tissue. If you're an employer, screen your employees daily for symptoms of COVID-19 and where appropriate, refer for testing. Working together, we can beat the coronavirus. A message from government.
Welcome back. Your host Maponga Joshua here on Galaxy Universal Network, discussing with Muruti Pastor Bafana Phalane on the issue of gender-based violence, and we've covered quite a bit of mileage. And it's very interesting. While I'm looking at my phone here, there's a lady by the name of Nonsikelelo Khomo, and she writes a comment that says, "You're sitting there as both men, having a conversation about women." Gossip. Maybe it's important that you have this conversation as men without women. That's quite a positive conversation. Yeah. Because I think what brings us to this conversation is actually the violence of men to women. So we could have had a woman again, or victims of violence, and speaking again and hear the story. But I think when I was putting the show together, I thought it was important to get it from the men's perspective as to why is it happening, how is it happening, when will it stop, and various items that are there. Let's go back to the church story that we're busy battling with. Yeah. Does your church have a problem with women?
They might not be saying it, but the practice.
Remember, I will not let you go. I will not let you go easily. So you dig your feet nicely. Yeah. Does your church have problems with women?
I think so, yes. Yeah.
Elaborate, sir.
The church started a long time ago, over 150 years. But up to today, women are not ordained. We're still having a conversation whether they should be ordained or not. Let alone the theology of ordination. I'm not there. Yeah, because that's another problem.
For another day.
Yeah, because we introduce something that creates inequality.
Imbalance.
Yeah, it should not be there. Then we are equal. But up to today, we're still debating whether women should be ordained or not. I mean, even in a society where women are regarded as nothing. I mean, as a church, why do we even have that conversation? Let alone the theology. Let's put life first and say, okay, guys, the society does not respect women. Let us come forth and show some positivity towards this gender and ordain women and forget about theology. Because whether you're theologically right or not, it won't change the fact that the society is against women and we are part of it as a church. Yeah.
In terms of statistics,
yeah.
Percentages, how many women comprise the total number of your church in terms of percentage? Men, women, children. What is the greatest population in your church?
More than half the population is women.
And okay, let me throw the second question.
Yeah.
In terms of your administration, statistics, comparing men to women, how is your administration distributed?
The clergy, there's only one.
So it's 99.99% men.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's only one woman in the leadership of my church. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Having said that, then would you say that your church is democratic? Because if democracy means equal representation, then why is that the church is 60 to 70% women and children, and yet it is 100% male?
I don't really think we practice democracy the way it's supposed to be. Yeah, we can say we are democratic, but if we are not doing it correctly, it loses the whole purpose. I don't think we are democratic. Why do I say that? For an example, when South Africa comes out of apartheid into the new democratic dispensation, they realize the inequalities between races, women, gender, and stuff like that. So they come up with the policies to say, okay, we have to redress, we have to catch up. So let's put women first. Let's put blacks first, you know, an actual document to say this is what we need to do. Whether you follow the documents or not, but we must see a blueprint. What are you doing? But in my church, I don't think it's the
While
case.
your church is still divided on racial lines,
yes,
do you have moral grounds to begin to have conversations around the issues of women?
For me, it's an embarrassment to myself. Let me speak for myself, not for the church. Sometimes I feel like I'm being a hypocrite when my church does not want to ordain women, and I stand in front of people and say, women equality. It's impossible for me to preach equality as a pastor of an organization that has not practiced it properly. Let alone the issues of race also. You know, there are many other issues. If you are representing an organization that has not come clean about a certain aspect, it becomes difficult for you as a person to say, this is where I stand, when you work for the very organization that has not done much on that. Yeah.
Interesting, interesting. Community justice systems in terms of legislature. What's to be your feedback on that? How do you view the arms of law when it comes to crimes against women? I'm looking at the reporting system. I'm looking at the judiciary system. I'm looking at the parole system. I'm looking at the bail stories. And then those same people who are in prison coming back and again threatening the same families. I'm looking at the sentencing, for example. The whole spectrum of the legal arm when it comes to dealing with women. What is your feeling about the response of the law to women's issues?
At the bottom of it all, we have a problem of representation. Okay, why do I say that? You can pump in as much billions as you can in fixing this problem. Last year, President Ramaphosa said, I'm not giving you 1.1 billion, I'm giving you 1.6 billion for gender-based violence. Okay, you can come up with how much you want to come up with. But if your judges, your police, everyone is a man in a society where women are oppressed. Even your system is an oppressor by itself. Why do I say that? How will women come out with confidence and say, men are doing this against us, when it is men who must sit down and listen to them and judge them? I think the government must take an active path to say, okay, we want so many women here. We want so many women here. We want so many women here in all sectors of government. And then we can have an honest conversation.
What are the common cliches that you hear out there as to why men abuse and why men rape women? What are some of the common cliches that are being spoken on the streets as to this is why I beat her, this is why you are raped, or this is the reason? What are some of the common conversations that young men out there are having?
Some of the disgusting things I've heard on social media or whatever, they say they deserve to get raped because of how they wear their clothes.
Okay.
How the way they speak to men, you know, they don't have respect, you know.
So someone doesn't respect you, must rape them.
Yeah, you must beat them up, you must dehumanize them because they don't show respect towards yourself as a male, you know. Then we have a cultural norm that must be dispelled there. Why do I say that? Patriarchy can only be good when there is harmony in our communities. I mean, if men provide, if men take care of women, if men can lead, if men love their women and children, I don't think patriarchy was going to be a problem. But now, we are perpetrating patriarchy even when it's failing. I mean, how do you give power to someone who does not have regard over women and children? That's a problem. The society protects men, yet men are actually the perpetrators.
Wow.
Yeah. I personally, original thought, I don't think patriarchy has a problem. The problem is the repercussions. We are in a society that does not respect women. Then patriarchy is a problem. So not that all of a sudden patriarchy has never been a problem. It has never been a problem.
All right.
Yeah.
The issues of patriarchy are coming out quite strongly, and also picking up a little bit on the judiciary system there. Do you feel that the sentencing of criminals is the arm of law is doing a sufficient task in terms of putting deterrents into place, so that in case other offenders could get a clear message exactly as to what they should do and what they should not do? Do you feel that the arm of law is extended enough, and that the sentencing of these criminals in the GBV spaces is actually an effective way of sentencing, and is also a deterrent to other offenders?
No, I don't think so. For example, a few years ago, I listened to a leader from Singapore. A leader from Singapore, he says, okay, if you have a problem of corruption in a government, arrest the leaders. Arrest the leaders, and then it will make it easier for you to arrest the common people. Coming to your question, if you have a society that does not arrest anyone, people steal resources from the poor, they don't get arrested. There is no miracle. A president will never wake up and say, now it's time to arrest, when he knows that even in his administration, there are people who belong behind bars. I mean, if the leaders don't have regard for the law, how will me as a poor person, we will not win? But again, number two, a few years ago at home, I get a call that someone wanted to rape my niece. Okay, where is that person? No, we took the person to the police station. When they get to the police station, the question they get from the police, like, why did you bring the man here? You should have come by yourself to open the case. We will go and look for the man. I mean, here is a criminal. You see, now we are now we have a program or a policy actually that protects the criminals even more. So I must leave a criminal in the streets
and go and report.
Then
they'll go and hunt for him.
And hunt for him. When it's easier, I have a criminal here. So I think the police must show some force towards brutality. They really should. The vulnerable people in the communities, the government must plant ideas in our heads. When you see an elderly person, something in your heart must say, I must not touch that person. Yeah, the government should take us there, where the law is stronger on some things and more stronger on other things. When you see a woman as a man, if you know that the government cares, something must say, hey,
hitting you a little bit.
We don't touch this.
Let's move on. Let's move over and take a small little short break. When we come back, we will conclude with the last final remarks. But I would want to throw his mind onto the greater African space and say, as an African continent, as we've discussed the regional and the local churches and local politics, maybe want to throw a picture out there. And while you're on that, we have a sad story that we wanted to report also. Queen Amara from Ghana, one of the queens that I'm working with on AIM, African Indigenous Movement. A day ago, was going outside at night, and she picked up some mangoes from the tree, and the neighbor walked from his house and came and slapped her and beat her. Now, the whole queen was beaten by a neighbor. And here we are in Africa saying we want to invite the Africans and the Americans who are in diaspora to be coming back and live with us as Africans. The question is, what quality of neighbors will they be living with? Don't go away. We'll be right back.
The coronavirus outbreak.
Experience the extraordinary.
Tremendous waste and tremendous fraud. Mexico is, in fact, You will soon find out.
It is a day to celebrate.
We don't approve at all what's going on.
Well, I don't know if it's necessarily unusual.
Challenge your ordinary.
Not only the government, the municipality here has had no plan.
Experience the extraordinary with StarSat.
From rural to urban, we bring you local and international sport.
From Cape to Cairo, from Nairobi to Kinshasa.
As we stand out amongst the rest.
And we are here to inspire you.
From the Horn of Africa to the Equator's indigenous people.
Galaxy Universal Network. Khilikisa ditaba tse felletseng. Abapenyi bezindaba nezintatheli ezingesabilutho. Bila woga, upendeleo, atoko chochote.
Channel 500 on StarSat. This is Galaxy Universal Network.
The power to defeat coronavirus is in our hands. Play your part by following these 5 basic precautions. Regularly wash your hands with soap and water or sanitizer for at least 20 seconds. Maintain a safe distance of at least 1.5 meters from people around you. Wear a cloth mask at all times when in public. Always cough or sneeze into your elbow or tissue. If you're an employer, screen your employees daily for symptoms of COVID-19 and where appropriate, refer for testing. Working together, we can beat the coronavirus. A message from government.
Welcome back. My name is Maponga J, right here on Global Universal Network, discussing with Pastor Phalane Bafana in Johannesburg, who is working in the Prison Ministries Department. And before we left for the break, we were giving you some details about something that has happened, unfortunate circumstance that has happened in Ghana, where one of the queen mothers on the Ghana space, Queen Mera, doctor, she's actually a doctor, professional doctor, who was picking up a mango at night from her house, and a neighbor walked up to her and slapped her on the face. And the letter is being flighted, and what we wanted to say that maybe let it be, it has to be the last time this happens to our women on the African continent. And we want this letter to reach the highest of authorities in Ghana and beyond. And we want the government of Ghana to pass a statement, a clear statement, as to what is their position as far as women abuse is concerned. And we, similarly to what has happened to George Floyd, we don't want to discuss these things in isolation because they are connected. And the question is, when it happens at one place, it's happening in 1,000 other places. If not happening at the same, being caused by the same stereotypes, which we constantly massage and manage. So let me throw it over to you. When you are looking from the Prison Ministries Department, when you are looking at the African continent, we all have come out from horrible pasts of war and etc. How do you, what type of assessment can you give us when you look into the greater African continent as a whole, as far as African traditions, African religions, and the way they are treating their women and children and the vulnerable?
It is a reality that our history was disturbed by a very big event in the African space where Western people came into the continent and destabilized our way of living. It's something that we can't change. It happened. But survival of the fittest was brought by colonization, where people felt like, you know, I must do it for myself and myself only. That's where crime starts, you know. Where in a society, in the Western philosophies teach individualism. You know, when you're hungry, you have to do it yourself. You know, and whether someone else is starving or not, you don't care.
As long as you are sorted.
As long as you're sorted. And then I think that's where crime comes in, when someone just doesn't see a problem in going somewhere and take something from someone and go and feed their families or themselves or somewhere. So I think as we deal with the past, we must also deal with the values, you know, African values. You know, we never used to exist on our own. There was always a community, whether in farming, whether in schooling. An African man was never an isolated man. Whenever there was a problem with someone, there was always an intervention of the elders, of people around. I think that's where we must actually look at this thing. You know, Western philosophy says I must go to school and become a better person and feed my family.
Don't relate to those who are uneducated.
After when I start working, I leave my home, I go somewhere and live in a gated complex somewhere. That's individualism. And if you want to be, if we are saying we are building an African society, but yet we are following on the program of the Western philosophy.
Isolation.
Yeah, that's where crime comes in. I mean, okay, all rich people are somewhere else, and all poor people are somewhere else. They must survive. Where do they go when they want to survive? That's why there are gunshots, even in Sandton. Those gunshots are from people in Alexander. They want to survive, and they know where the resources are.
Where the loot is.
Where the resources are. I think the whole system must be relooked. You know, we must go back. We must forget about individualism. We must reach out to one another. I think that's where we are as a people, because there is no amount of police that will take out criminals from our spaces when the system actually breeds criminals. Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's quite interesting. Yeah. I want us maybe to pick up just one last shot left with you right there in terms of recommendations. Maybe a last one little punch. When our young ladies are leaving their homes to get married, and they consider that their husbands must be the passports of their careers into a new space of living and etc., how does that translate itself into an abusive space?
Right there and there in the beginning, I mean, if things don't work out, there's no one who wants to go back to poverty. You end up staying with a man who is clearly not with you. They just, maybe they want to move on, but you have to stay there because you want to survive as a person.
It's your passport.
Yeah. You end up forcing yourself into a man's life. If you leave, there is no abuse. If you go back, but yet, who wants to go back to poverty? Who wants to go back to dilapidated background? As I said in the beginning, the governments must deal with the condition
of the society.
Parting
short before I do my concluding remarks. Parting short, give some advices to some young men and women out there, some couples. Njungomfundis, what do you say to them?
I think it must be our burden as individuals in the society, not the burden of the government. What kind of people do we want to see around us? And if you have that framework in your mind, start working, teach your children what kind of adults do you want them to be. I think that's where we start. It will not get fixed by the police or the government. Build the society we want to live in.
Want to live.
Yeah, not what the government says we must live in.
3 types of law that we always find. Law number 1, the law of self-preservation. Law number 2, the law of family preservation. Law number 3, the law of community preservation. How do you look after yourself? What type of people do you attract into your own space? And what quality of relationships do you have with yourself? Some people, when you leave them by themselves, they're actually capable of destroying themselves. When people have sorted out their own personal spaces, these are the kind of people who must move over and start building families and building homes. Therefore, your husband and your wife is not your better half. It looks like an abnormal person. You are a full half. You are a full piece joining with another full piece to make one big piece. And many of us run around looking for better halves. No wonder you're always empty, because you go into a relationship thinking that you don't have enough of what it takes. You are one whole person looking for another whole person. law of self-preservation, law of family preservation, and ultimately law of community preservation. How do we look after each other as a community? It takes a community to bring up a child. Remember, that child whom you are bringing up in your own house may as well, might as well, will as well end up in my own house. So as you are bringing them up, just remember you are doing the neighbor the favor. But not only the neighbor, you are doing yourself the favor. For what goes around will always come around. Let us do our best in bringing up our children to build the Africa that we want to see happening. This is Ubuntu. Thank you very much. Show some hearts, show some love to our honorable guest, Mfundis Phalane from the Seventh Adventist Church. Until we see again, my name, Maponga J. Mwana wa Razaro, chigara mboko gara mashamba huda chira na wana webanji, makumbo mwana mwesende we shano. Wana chigara mabuke matanda no wora chiramba kusesera, chibuke chitedza chino kwigwa na wana mango alipedo antamba nacho. Huida miti ya so se. Until we see you again, enjoy yourself and have a wonderful evening.
The coronavirus outbreak.